Hello, I'm Quinta Thomson from FairPlanet, and I'm very excited to have Sabrina Sanchez with me today, the director of the European Sex Workers' Rights Alliance, formerly known as the International Committee on the Rights of Sex Workers in Europe. Sabrina also works with APROSEX in Barcelona and is a co-founder of OTRAX, the Union of Sex Workers in Spain. ESWA is a sex worker-led network representing more than 100 organizations led by or working with sex workers in 35 countries in Europe and Central Asia. The organization strives to raise awareness about the social exclusion of sex workers and to promote the human, health, and labor rights of all sex workers. FairPlanet is very excited to delve into the work of ESWA today and the major concerns facing sex workers today, as well as the debate around decriminalisation and regulation that is currently kind of being progressed and we're seeing more of. First of all, how are you doing, Sabrina? I would love a brief catch up on the history of ESWA and also the work that you've recently been doing.
Thank you very much, Quinta. I'm fine. I'm still recovering from our digital rights convening. We organized this gathering when we came together with 50 sex workers and some allies, three or four of them, in Madrid. So talking about the dangers that the dangers that we face online, all the questions of that we usually face, like shadow banning, deplatforming, being ousted of the banking system, for example, when PayPal or OnlyFans they shut us our accounts because they figure out that we are sex workers. But in general, we cover many aspects. Of course, we cover the policy, the pure policy thing that it's in the European level. For example, with the Violence Against Women directive that has been reviewed and passed by the European Parliament, as well as other policy developments like the prostitution report that was presented last summer and that unfortunately passed. That this report is comes from a very biased and horrible report recommending that the Nordic model is the best thing without any source. When of course, we have a lot of research and findings in 25 years since Sweden adopted this model of criminalization of everything around sex work, and and of course, well, we can say that we lost that battle, but in the other hand, if we compare it some years ago in 2014, when the Honeywell report is similar, that there was a similar thing was presented, the an overwhelming majority of MEPs approved that then. But now we can see that the tide is turning a little bit. We can see that the votes in favor were less than the votes against and the abstentions. So, but well, as this was not binding, this is a report that is not binding, but still we see this trend, in many European countries as well as the European institutions of tending to criminalize sex work in order to abolish it, or thinking that that with this thought, it's curious because uh, they are the first ones. This opposition are the first ones that say like we are not products, but in the other hand, with this laws, they are treating us like products. They have this mindset of, okay, if we make it difficult for them to sell, they're going to stop selling. But they don't have in mind that this job is already done by people that has really few options, and sometimes the options that they offer us to exit, quote unquote, and or this kind of solutions are usually precarious. They're also vulnerable, and sometimes many sex workers have already run from those works like housekeeping, like caring of kids and elder people. So well, it's this is something that is coming again. They just basically they want to surveil sex workers that are also happen to be migrants. So it's like a it's a whole
Yeah.
mechanism that it's really terrible.
Yeah, I wanted to actually talk to you about that of this kind of intersectionality of oppression, I guess, that or discrimination that a lot of sex workers face. You know, it's often those who face multiple forms of discrimination and structural equalities that are overrepresented in kind of sex work. And I guess this is perhaps where the link between exploitation and sex work is kind of seen. Yet ESWA is in opposition between kind of conflating sex work with trafficking and sex work with kind of a perception of it being as an exploitative place. Where do you think, though, that connection comes from? That for the people who believe that it should be criminalized, where does that kind of stigma come from, and how can you tackle it?
Well, first of all, it comes from prejudices and also from not being involved at all on this work. Happens from this moral panic that this is a terrible and violent work. But comes basically this situation comes from the terrible laws that we usually face. You know, they are recommending something that they say is great when the implementation it's violent. When you have to have to take your work underground and you have to protect your clients because otherwise you won't have any income. And these laws basically what they do are giving power to bad actors and of course to the police. That is shown and in many researches that we are also coming with our own later this year. But for example, in Latin America has been in 2017 the repressive, that is the regional network similar like ESWA, but in Latin America. They conducted a huge survey in many Latin American countries, and the conclusions were that 70% of the violence was coming from the police corps. And in this case of Britain, it's the same. You know, they are giving more power to bad actors when you simply work together. So then when the clients realize the situation, they can turn to say like, oh, now I can report you because you are working with another colleague. So what they intend to do is that it's safe. It's really not happening. You're not helping sex workers in need because you're making our working conditions even more difficult. You are not helping victims of trafficking because they are not come out, and also because all the trials phase and all the judicial way is long, and usually the countries you only warranty protection once there's a conviction, like happened in Sweden, a conviction for human trafficking. So that can take years, and most of the times it's not the case. So those witnesses are usually deported. So this intersect because they are creating the awful conditions that for this to happen. So they are the carceral feminists. I don't like to call them abolitionists because that's for me that's another term that comes from black women like Angela Davis that are against the penal system, and this so-called neo-abolitionists are basically wanting to put more jail and more police. So it's the whole way around. That's why I prefer to call them carceral feminists.
Yeah. What would you say to I don't know, I guess research into it strikes me that there's quite a big disparity in terms of research when looking at kind of criminality. And so, your statistics on actually police violence being one of the biggest threats, whereas someone like Julie Bindel and her kind of book, The Pimping of Prostitution, which was a deep dive into sex workers in decriminalized kind of countries, and actually how a lot of the harm and exploitation still existed through that. But so do you think that this is there is just it's biased information that people are using, or it's just different
Yeah,
research
absolutely, absolutely.
that
Because the
that seems to
research
be.
by yeah, the research by Julie Bindel, she research in Germany, that is not the best model at all. They put it always like an example, of what we want. But we've been saying that we don't like the German model, like, because it's not sex worker center. It's just a way for the German state to have this kind of work like controlled, but also always under a criminal view. So Julie Bindel and Julie Bindel only goes to interview the clients. So who cares about the clients? Like, they do care a lot what men has to say. This is something that we don't agree. We don't uh, we don't mind what client says. We are center of what the sex worker says, and what we want. And basically, Julie Bindel, that's famous swerve turf. It's biasing the research. That she's. I read that research, and there's no sex worker like really interviews. She's gone to the clients and why they think,
Yeah.
and we know what they think. That's why they have to pay. you know so it's totally biased, it's flawed,
And
but has as she has certain stages in the academia, in some kind of white feminism, like she's taken in consideration, but it's wrong, it's flawed, and doesn't help anybody.
mm. So, um, as part of ESWA's model is this incorporation of sex workers. It is, something that FairPlanet loves because it's from the ground up, and it's listening to it's working for the people that are doing it essentially. A question that I wanted to ask was, representing so many different networks, how do you conduct a process of listening and decision making fairly and equally to this expansive network of different people from many different contexts? What does that process kind of look like?
Well, it comes to us because in ESWA we are a small organization that we do a lot of things, and we overwork a lot. But seems that we are like a 20 people organization when we are really seven. And from those seven people, we are five sex workers. We have five people that have the live experience, that have gone to the really grassroots, and really from situations of vulnerability, and through our work, through our sex work, and also being politicized, we have been also growing and developing the ways to consult. So we know what our community wants. We always try to open the process of consultations for all our memberships, mainly to the sex worker led organizations that currently are 61 out of 115 in the whole Europe. So we always try to consult them. It's a long process sometimes, and sometimes sex workers in their national context, mostly when it's criminalized, it's they have it a little bit difficult to participate. But we know the situation, and we try to be as open as we can, and try to disseminate and try to push them a little bit to at least answer the surveys that we that we send, to answer to the researches that we find, and also be participative on the projects that we have. For example, this research that I referred before, that is a feminist participatory action research on policing. It will cover 12 countries together with 14 sex worker organizations, and they are all sex worker led. We train them on how to conduct the service, the research, and they've been doing it. So it's our own community, what it knows the needs, and that is passing up to us, so we can put them together and make like policy proposals, and go with them, and try to influence the difficult the different actors and the lawmakers and other activists and other movements like the anti-racist movement as well as the migrant movement, for example, LGBTQI plus. So that's how we make these consultations, and of course these gatherings that as we had last weekend, that also reinforce that, because we talk with each other, we know what is happening in other countries, they tell us the situation. So that's how we want, or we try to get everybody involved, and and that as well is useful for them, it's useful for their activism, it's useful for the towards the direction that they want to take the movement.
Mm. And when is this report coming out?
Around October, mostly. We will be making a lot of noise
Okay.
because it's our biggest research yet. We've interviewed around 153 sex workers in 12 countries, and also one of the findings that we have from all these 250 sex workers, combining countries of origin, countries of destination or transit, or where they have worked, we have the experience of people that has been worked in 50 countries. So it's really huge. So yeah, we will be making some noise, but wait for it in August. No, in October. Sorry.
We will link it for our readers when it comes out. Um, and I think, yeah, one question that I did want to ask was about advocacy and stigma within that, and how you're overcoming the stigma within through advocacy, but also even for people to engage in any advocacy around sex work.
Hmm.
It's not like other kind of issues that everyone is very concerned with, because I think, that because of the history of it, but also the moral taboos, the religious elements that people feel
Hmm.
kind of concerned with. What are the steps that you're taking to overcome that stigma?
Yeah, well, it's just one of the or at least I think it's the one of the biggest impediments sometimes for political engagement. We also know that mostly when it's about sex workers that are mothers, and there are single mothers that are a lot, like it's 70-80% of female sex workers are mothers, and of course you are concerned that you can take their custody taken out, that the state can come for your child and declare you like that you are not able to be a mother. What that's has happened in Sweden, for example, that the fact that you are sex work, then they consider that you are not an appropriate mother, and they take the child out of you. So that's a real concern. Of course, that's super difficult to overcome. But in the case when that there are not such a problem, it's a question of locally we are trying to work with the stigma, mostly when the grassroots organization with the different organizations trying to gather together sex workers, that that we are uh, we have still in our systems, that what we're doing is immoral or is bad or is shameful, and basically we try to empower the sex workers, saying like, okay, this work makes you to take to make ends meet, makes you to being able to feed your family, and also to send money to your country, because that's also something that it's a very common thing. So it's a work in progress. It's not easy, because the message from the institutions, from governments, like in, for example, in Spain, they have all these campaigns directed, let's say, to the clients, when they tell them that they are paying for to rape, basically, if they hire sex workers. So it's a huge challenge to overcome all those different messages that we hear
Yeah.
everybody that from everywhere, and also that our relatives uh, here without sometimes even knowing that we are sex workers. No, so it's a work in progress. Is I think that's the hardest part. But also when you realize that, like, yeah, no, this is, I don't have to be ashamed of anything. This is my job. I can make ends meet. It's more shameful not being able to survive, or not being able to pay your bills, or not being able to maintain or keep your children. So it's a change that comes with the time, and also with help with your peers. They also to reinforce you that it's not anything shameful to do this job.
Yeah. And but speaking of Spain, actually, I was looking at the recent report about coming from the Spanish government and police, I think, maybe that an estimate of up to 90% of women working in prostitution could be victims of trafficking or under the
That's a
control of a
bogus.
third
That's a total
party. Um,
bogus. It's a total bogus. It's doesn't sustain. Doesn't say where that 90% comes from. There's never any source of that. And it comes that in Spain, that I can tell you that comes from a research on 2007, no, 2006, from the municipality of Barcelona, that showed that the 80% of sex workers in the city were migrants, were foreigners. Now, that doesn't mean that we're trafficked. The thing that it comes from also this moral bourgeois idea that nobody can do that work unless it's somehow forced or coerced with violence or trafficked. So that's that study, like always, every time I see it, because now they're pushing the thing that it started with 80, now it goes with 90. And 2 years ago, the past minister of equality, in an interview, she said 99. So they're not even agree with their own numbers, and it's a bogus thing. I really invite you to find the source, the real original source of that, and you're not going to find it. You're going to say like civil guard, but yeah, what's
no,
what's the
it's
study that the
funny.
civil guard
I
that the
was,
civil guard did?
yeah,
So it's nothing. It's bogus. It's
yeah, no, I
completely false. The ILO in their estimates on modern slavery studies that I think that they launch every year. They estimate that in sexual exploitation, in the sexual industry, it's around the 14%. That is still a lot, but it's not the 90%. It doesn't match any number. If you have worked 2 years as a sex worker and you know sex workers, you realize it's not true.
it's funny because I saw that that was widely circulated in the media, and I was trying to find the source of it. So I was hoping you could shed some light onto it for me.
There's no
But
sources, just an
and I
invention.
guess this comes into the yeah. Of so do you think it is also a case of thorough research, which I guess, ESWA is undertaking as well. But where would you say for Fair Planet readers or people wanting to find out more about the issues that sex workers face and the solutions to them, do you have any resources at
Well,
hand?
and at ESWA website, we have a huge section with all the resources. Also, from when we were ICRSE, so that means that it's our resources for that have almost 20 years. The ones that we are launching now, the global network of sex worker projects, the nswp.org. They also have way lot of resources in a worldwide, because they are a global network. So they can also have resources from Latin America, from Asia, Africa, Europe. So there's a big huge of evidence, that that criminalizing sex work is only detrimental. It doesn't finish with the work. In Sweden, it has been doing for 25 years, and you see there are still people going to Sweden to work. There are still sex workers, and it's just in bad conditions. So that's why we appreciate very much and applaud the direction that Belgium has taken. It's the same that New Zealand took 20 years ago in 2003, I'm at 21, of decriminalizing sex work. Of course, it's not the a silver bullet, it's not the panacea, but of course you have to adapt that decriminalization to your local context as well. So you cannot do as they want to do with the Swedish model, copy paste and adapt it to the Spanish or French environment, because it's not the same. It's not the same in population. It's not same in GDP. It's not same in anything. In that's in not even in political organization. Like the Spain has a certain way of organizing. France has also have their other way of organizing, and Sweden has a different. So but what they want is just copy paste, like find the buyers, and find anything related to the places where we can live, where we can work, people that can help us, even our partners, if they are in the same in the same premises, they can also be taken as pimps when they're not. So it doesn't help anybody. It's just for the good bourgeois white cis hetero conscious to to say like, oh, that's already criminalized, and it's okay, because they don't have to face the consequences. They don't have to face the implementation of those laws. That is basically what they forget, and this basically what where we see violence from the police, when we see that in the name of when they are raids made, money taken, telephones taken, and people left on the street.
Mm. And what is it about Belgium and New Zealand and those models that you think are done so well?
Well, first of all, the governments consulted the sex workers at the time of legislating this or planning this, something that doesn't happen in Germany, the Netherlands, Austria, for example, Greece, there is some sort of regulation that the opposition called legalization. That is not true. It's like a regulation, very restrictive regulation, that basically, for example, in the case of Germany, is like, well, it's like saying, you want to follow this path? Well, I'm going to make it difficult for you. And they made really uh, difficult, very difficult, how to say in English? Um, it's difficult to comply with the law, basically. So you work with a non-register. So when they say, oh, um, yeah, because you need to re-register in Germany, and one of the arguments of the Nordic model is saying like, oh, they don't register. Yeah, because it's difficult to register, and you need to eat today. You do sex work because you need money now. Not You don't need money in 30 days when you have the appointment to go to the office and go to all the procedure. That's the thing. So that's why it doesn't work. And in New Zealand and Belgium, the first of all, the law was designed together with the sex workers. It was consulted with the sex workers and was taken, the safety of sex workers on the work, very serious. So that's why it has been working. In Belgium, we still have to see how to see like fully implemented. There's still some things on the making in terms of regulations, and so, because of course it is at the same time, when you open a restaurant, you must follow some regulations for that kind of establishment. In this case, is the same. You will have to design certain regulations, agree also with the neighbors, because we know for some people doesn't want to have this kind of establishments closed. And of course, but once you are decriminalized, you're part of the society. You're not a victim that you have to rescue, because poor you cannot decide, no, it's because you're being forced. Because as I can,
Would you?
as me, as a white
Mm.
woman with a college degree, I cannot do that. I think that you cannot, and that so this the fact of being decriminalized and be taken as a job, that that give us this social intelligibility that that can take us to the negotiating table and negotiate, like in happen in other places. So, but this the insistence of that we need to be rescued and nobody has to do that, and this is a terrible job. Like, well, there are a lot of terrible jobs, some like everywhere, and they don't
Yeah.
seem to take care to take care of that there very much.
Mm. And it's interesting though when you, I don't know, talk about this idea of agency and it being kind of a choice, but then you speak of people needing to feed their children and you need to make an income. So would you say that often, the larger issue is the structural kind of oppression? It's also poverty, it's economic inequality, and that would be a lot better of a solution rather than criminalization? Or do you think that there doesn't necessarily need to be a solution? There just needs to be an improvement in welfare and an improvement in protections of health rights, labor rights, and
It
economic
can
rights as
it
well.
has to be it has to can be both. That's if we improve the structural situation, if we improve also the other parts of the labor market for women. There's there if you go to caretaking, the conditions are not really good, the payment is bad. If you go to the housekeeping, cleaning, that is majority female staff, that it's badly paid. There's a lot of hours. It's heavy work. I don't know if you try to lift in a hotel the mattress. And imagine doing it. You know, many
Yeah.
rooms, 8 hours, and all day, and that has to be improved, because you cannot offer that a solution when it's terrible. So that
Mm,
has to be improved. Has to be, the cost living crisis is a thing that it's not being solved. It is still very here, and it's not being solved. And of course, you at the same time, for the people, if the people see this th- this these conditions, the working conditions getting better, maybe for some of them will say, like, well, maybe selling sex is not, is I cannot do it. But anyway, there will be always people wanting to do it, because it's also part of human nature. This is something, and also the labor market cannot absorb everybody. So we need to create good conditions for a job that it's been done for thousands and thousands of years.
mm, mm. Thank you. Thank you so much. And on a final note, to addressing Fair Planet readers, our audience, how can how can people who aren't directly involved in sex work or don't even know that much about it, how can we get involved? How can we help with the work of ESWA?
That if they had the chance, and they are able to give space in mainstream media, and in places where we are not, and it's only one narrative. Let's say, like, that prostitution is violence against women. I think that worst violence is poverty. Although the poverty that we are into, and that from that come all the rest of the vulnerabilities. So give us space, give us voice, support the local sex worker groups with money, because usually they are on a voluntary basis. They are the same sex workers that you know. It's our lives is that that are in danger. That's why we become involved on activism and trying to protect us. So found the local sex workers, that they are the ones that are in touch with the most vulnerable part, and listen to us, and replicate our messages, because an improvement on sex worker rights, it will be an improvement on everybody else's rights.